why is Keir Starmer a Nazi?
Oh, yeah, I want to warmly welcome Keir Starmer to the Labour Party. Turns out, coming in, water's fine. I'm referring to the recent rhetorical, not really policy shift by the Labour Party, because I think the forked tongue of Mr. Anthony Blair is probably flicking in his ear, going, the Tory party are very weak right now. They all hate each other. Do you want to be electable? If so, yes. Put away the crazies and hit them from the right on immigration.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously like, move to the center. This is where the votes are going to come from.
Well, not just that. He's going full far right in saying Rwanda plan is not deporting the criminals fast enough. So if anyone hasn't seen PMQs, which I do enjoy watching because it's a fun.
Only because it hasn't deported a single one yet, right?
He's actually complained that you just piddled a load of money away on not getting these people out of the country. And
did you see the Conservatives have pledged another 150 million?
Fun. Yeah, all of our money going on that.
Callum expression says it all.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to hear what Keir Starmer said. I want to see it.
All right.
I love retardation from the Labour Party.
Yep. Well, it turns out Keir Starmer's probably been listening to Eric Kaufman on migration policy. So if you'd like to subscribe to the website for as little as £5 a month, don't do that, please, John. Then you can go and watch my interview with Eric Kaufman. This one's actually free, but of course, we do appreciate a subscription so we can keep bringing in guests like this. So we spoke about the origins of woke because he's got a brand new course over at the University of Buckingham. He spoke about migration because of his book White Shift, where he said, actually, you don't just have to only speak about the effects of migration on housing and the NHS and the welfare state. You can talk about the lack of cultural assimilation, the feeling of ethno-cultural displacement, and those are legitimate concerns that shouldn't be marginalised. I would think that Labour's almost unanimously Anglo-Saxon frontbench are probably more capable to speaking to that concern for the Red Wall at this point, because they're a lot less diverse than the Tories are.
It is weird that if you look at it through the lens of representation, England is represented in the Labour Party.
Yeah, despite Emily Thornberry, of course, years ago tweeting out the photo of the white van and the English flag. What did she caption it disgusting or something?
It's something vile or something.
Oh, yeah.
So it was,
just disdain for your countrymen. But always a winning platform.
But it's just remarkable because they're like the only English party in England.
Or at least the only ones that are approximate to power, quite. Yeah.
Lib Dems notwithstanding.
So Keir Starmer started off this week by
so full of hope.
I'm not hopeful about anything.
No, you're just like, man, at least they're majority English or something. It's like, bro, have you seen their candidates?
Listen, right. The point is that you've just jumped out of a plane and the parachute didn't pull. So you're like, right, well, I could scream and cry, or I could enjoy the view before we hit the ground. Okay? So I'm just going to enjoy the view as we hit the ground.
Emily Thornberry.
It's just mildly ironic.
I don't see it.
The party that most represents the ideal BNP racial makeup is the Labour Party. I just find that amusing.
I don't think they do.
But the front bench, at least, if you think about like baseline optics, so the Red Wall voters that aren't particularly plugged into politics all the time, they look at which party they feel represents them, their families historically.
There is so Nash Shah at the front. You are right about that.
Yeah, well, she and a bunch of others just stepped down from their cabinet positions because of the ceasefire votes. They've even shored up their English ethnic representation.
The Muslim demographic were like, well, I'm not voting for you at all.
Yeah.
So who else are you going to vote for?
Well, who cares? They're going to. Well, no, someone started a Muslim party.
Yeah, the Muslim Party of Britain.
It's not gone very far yet, but we'll see. We'll see.
But the point is, the Labour Party's ethnic composition is just growing more narrow, and it just amuses me since they're the party of diversity.
And so is their rhetoric. And
yes,
Keir Starmer has played with fire early this week because it seems that he's pandering to who he thinks the Tory right are, but I don't think he realises that Thatcher is almost unanimously despised at this point because the Tory party have been running on a Thatcherite platform for ages, particularly despised among the Red Wall.
Right.
And he's turned around and actually said that Thatcher did loads of good things.
This is hilarious because what he's doing is appealing to the Liz Truss demographic, whoever they are.
Yeah. Also, I think this might be Tony Blair again, because again, nobody forget that
undoubtedly
Thatcher did say Tony Blair was the best part of my legacy, but he wrote in the Sunday Telegraph, every moment of meaningful change in modern British politics begins with the realisation that politics must act in the service of the British people rather than dictating to them. Margaret Thatcher sought to drag Britain out of its stupor by setting loose our natural entrepreneurialism. Tony Blair reimagined a stale, outdated Labour Party into one that could seize the optimism of the late 90s. So more so that he's kissing the backside of his natural overlord. Of course, the Corbynites weren't delighted with this. So this was Labour MP Beth Winter. She said that the Thatcher government devastated communities with the deliberate destruction of the mining industry. Kind of true. Policies like the grossly iniquitous poll tax and great privatisation rip-offs were the hallmarks of Thatcherism.
That's
very
also
based.
true, yeah.
Asked what the strategy behind Sir Keir's praise for Margaret Thatcher was, one Labour MP who remained anonymous told The Independent there were no runes to read. You'd be better off reading the entrails of a chicken than trying to understand the strategy in Keir's office. It's just madness. Now,
I don't know. I don't think that's true.
I agree. I think that this is an ideologue, and she doesn't understand that he's being a political pragmatist and he's taking his lead from focus groups. So, because she doesn't get in touch with what the voting public might want, because, of course, the Corbynistas already have their plan for a socialist republic of the UK all fully mapped out, and that's why they won the argument but not an election, she can't see that this is actually a smart electoral strategy.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of critiques of Thatcher, but her being anti-British isn't one of them.
Yes.
And her being unsuccessful is also not one of them. And so Keir Starmer is trying to situate himself within that tradition, which is a successful and pro-British tradition. And so if you're appealing to normie people, and you're just like, look, we're going to get people working, we're going to lower taxes, we're going to do a lot of the stuff that Thatcher did that made Britain great during the Cold War, well, maybe that's a good way of harking back to that kind of nostalgia.
Yeah, he's trying to drive around the contaminated reputation of the Brown, Cameron, May, and then the last three prime ministers era that all look like political failures, and reconnect himself back to the 80s and 90s period.
There's actually quite a savvy strategy.
Yeah, and it's working because there are a bunch of Tory donors that are now jump ship to Keir Starmer. That like really rich and really prominent. So this is the Phones for You co-founder, John Caldwell. He's given $500,000 to the Conservative Party before the 2019 election. But last Friday, on the 1st of December, he said, I've met with Keir Starmer and he's more receptive to my ideas than the Tory party. Will that mean I donate? I can't answer, but what I can tell you is that any party that makes Britain great by having the right policies, any party that does what I think will make Britain great again, I will donate to. He told the Sunday Times in September, if Rishi sticks with net zero, would I donate to the Conservative Party? Absolutely not. No chance whatsoever. With the decisions that they're making at the moment, would I switch to Labour? The answer to that is very simple. I will support a party that I believe will do the right thing for Britain going forward.
Go on, Callum.
Sitting there being like, maybe the Labour Party won't support net zero.
I know, it's total cognitive dissonance.
I don't understand the British elite in the slightest. Like, there's the human individual beings you meet, and it's just like, yeah, man, I'm switching to Labour because...
It's because the last thing they said is what sticks in their brain. So if Rishi Sunak comes out and says, actually, Britain is leading the way on our net zero pledges, we've got to do it in a way that makes it affordable for the people. And Keir Starmer turns around and goes, you're rubbish on migration. They'll forget that Keir Starmer had spoken about net zero and he'd appointed Ed Miliband as his net zero czar and all this.
It was in his manifesto.
Yeah, like it wasn't the Tory one. But the most pressing issue at the moment is what occupies these people's minds. So he's just, I don't know, it's like political amnesia.
See, I view it as more political pragmatism. Right? I think that they're just like, well, who's going to be less incompetent out of the two? And it turns out on almost every issue, it's the Labour Party. Not that they don't want to do evil. It's just they won't do as much evil as the Conservatives.
It's also, I think...
What?
Look at the migration.
Yeah, I'm not hopeful in the slightest they're going to change anything. In fact, they'll probably make it worse and then normalize that.
No. What they're going to do is normalize 500,000 net a year. But at least that's not like 700,000 net a year.
I'm imagining that being played back in 3 years when they've turned it to 1.3 million a year.
Hey, if
that's the new norm.
Hey, if that's the case, I'll be like, well, I was wrong on that. Well, I thought the Labour Party would be more savvy than the Conservatives and would have some sort of more restraint over the civil service.
No.
Maybe.
I don't believe. I just find these people dull. Or it's. I mean, the only thing I can think of, like, you're not a stupid person to get that wealthy. You have to have just been coming at it from pragmatism, where it's like, hey, I'll start bribing the guys who are about to come into government. Yeah, because what else are they doing exactly?
I feel like they're riding the coattails of history as well. This is the same thing that we spoke about in what is the mindset that captures the elites in our contemplations on collapse. Not to bring up the spectre of the WEF, but Schwab did turn around and say, right, we're swimming with the currents of history. You want to be the big fish and the fast fish, not the small fish. So they're thinking, okay, well, if the current is moving this direction, I might as well swim with the current and be in a prime position, even if Starmer doesn't agree with everything that I say, to nudge and negotiate with the government that's going to get into power.
I bet, right, this will be a prediction. I don't normally make predictions, so my predictions are wrong, right? But I predict that Starmer will get net immigration down to 300k a year.
So that's wrong. Well, your predictions are wrong, so I'm taking that as wrong.
Sure, but like we'll see in like a year and a half's time.
Right. All right, I put a tenner on it. How about that?
Sure, we put a tenner on it. Say 400,000. If I'm going to put money on it,
as soon as there's a single pound involved,
as soon as a single pound. But no, I do think that he will drastically reduce the net, but only because the net was so ridiculously increased under the Tories. I mean, it'll be an easy win as well. Anyway.
I think he's just lying, but effectively lying at least. Also, a couple of more donors. The strategy chief at Saatchi & Saatchi, who were the one behind Thatcher's Labour isn't working slogan in 1979, they said Britain needs saving from 5 more years of stagnation, cruelty and despair. targeting the Tories, of course. The former governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, said it was beyond time for Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves to run the economy. Now, this is in spite of, as you covered a while ago, Callum, Rachel Reeves copy and pasting whole sections of her own book from Wikipedia and then admitting to it.
It's about time for Labour to be in charge of the economy. Said no one ever.
I mean, not to give the Tories any credit when hashtag 13 years have been rubbish, but do we remember that when the Brown government left, they literally left them a post-it note saying to the next guy, there is no money?
Yeah.
Well, because they were literally incompetent on every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, the most famous and easy one is you've got Gordon Brown, a guy who I think did economics at university,
Apparently.
and then announced he was going to sell loads of gold in
lows.
5 days. So the gold price went massively down, and then he sold it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't wait to get a house.
There is no more competence to be found in this place.
Nope. There was also the former donors that went to the Conservatives. There was the Iceland executive chair and the founder of Carpet Right. They've said that they're just not paying it. So it looks like the neoliberal establishment is just swapping their rosettes because they see that Labour are probably going to win.
Yeah, but just a quick thing here. Like, there's one thing looking at the Conservatives and being like, right, okay, they might be evil and generally incompetent, but at least you could point to a couple like Jeremy Hunt isn't stupid, right? He's evil.
Yeah, he's evil, yeah.
But he's
Michael
not,
Gove is evil.
Yeah, he's not stupid, he's evil. Right? So you can at least be like, right, okay, at least if they say, right, we're going to do this thing, an evil thing, you're like, okay, well, that's an evil thing that's going to get done. But who among the front bench of Labour do you look at and go, they're not stupid? Like, name one.
I watched the whole conference. I can't name a single conference attendant.
Yeah, name one that's not retarded. Genuinely, like, literally 105 IQ moron.
I think, what's her name? Angela Rayner would be able to launch a coup within the party, but I don't think she's smart enough to know political optics outside the party.
King of the retards.
You don't know that she
Angela
grew up
Rayner at
eating
107
dog food,
here.
She said that my mum was so illiterate that she used to buy me dog food growing up. I mean, I could tell by the face.
Like, ironically, like they aren't even only evil; they're also really, really stupid. Like, genuinely incompetent. Like, at least the Tories have got competent evil people.
Okay,
I'm more worried about the incompetence. They're both terrible, but like, I'm genuinely worried about the incompetence.
You're going to get it either
I know.
way.
5 more years of stagnation, then I suppose.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh no! That would be optimistic. It's going to be straight down from here.
Well, you know what?
Don't they want to abolish private schools?
Yeah, and they want to
God.
rapidly increase the age at which early intervention childcare is staffed by fresh university graduates who have no children. So that's going to create an entire generation of dispossessed kids.
I'll tell you about when my wife, on my third child, got a visit from like some healthcare worker. It's some 25-year-old fresh out of university, and she's like, "Well, this is what you need to do for your children." My wife's like, "I've got 4 kids. Like, I don't need your advice. Get out."
We've seen the police too, right? A bunch of kids, but they need university degrees now, so that's what you get.
Oh, a source of mine that I can't name, but who has worked within the Met Police fairly frequently, overheard a conversation the other day where they've again lowered the fitness requirements so that so the reason is so that every police officer can complete the
inclusivity.
Yeah, so they can complete it in their riot gear.
Yeah. Right.
So as long as you're really overweight, you then get the requirements lowered so that you can account for wearing this trans riot shield or whatever.
On the plus side, though, you'll be able to escape the police when they start chasing you for your mean tweets. Hi folks, we've rolled out a new feature on the website, which is the ability to pay for an individual piece of content. So usually it's £5 a month every month to subscribe to all of the content on the website. But I appreciate there are going to be people who simply don't want to do that. They would be interested instead in purchasing a single piece of content for a lower amount, and they've got a particular niche that they're interested in watching. And so they don't want every single piece of content. They just want this one thing. So we've introduced this function where you can just simply purchase the one thing for £1.89, which I think is about $2.30 at the current exchange rates. And then that's just yours forever. So there's no sort of commitment there. There's no rolling subscription. It's just that one thing. So that's an option now that's on the website. It's completely live. It's completely available. And please go and enjoy it. And we'll see you all very soon.
Anyway, so speaking of really naughty words said on the internet, there was Prime Minister's Questions on Wednesday. This was 2 days ago. And this came fresh off the defeat of the Rwanda plan, where Rishi Sunak, as you've already pointed out yesterday with the Freds, seems unwilling to just slash and burn all of the made-up human rights legislations that's getting in the way of deporting criminal illegals. And also piddled away over 140 million on the Rwanda plan when they haven't taken a single person. Keir Starmer just went scorched earth and was like, why aren't they all gone already?
Good question, Keir.
Yeah. So I find this fascinating. I decided to clip this. We're just going to have to roll that back.
I'm probably being unfair because he does have a plan. It's to cook up a deal with the EU that would see us accept 100,000 illegal migrants.
Keir Starmer! Migration's trebled on his watch, and all he can do is make up numbers about the Labour Party. It's really pitiful. I'm not actually sure the Prime Minister can have read this thing. Article 4 says the scheme is capped at Rwanda's capacity. That's 100. Article 5 says Rwanda can turn them away if they want. Article 19 says we actually have to take refugees from Rwanda. How much did this fantastic deal cost us?
Prime Minister! Madam Deputy Speaker, as the Home Secretary was crystal clear about, there is no incremental money. There is no incremental money that has been provided. This about is ensuring that the concerns of the Supreme Court have all been addressed in a legally binding treaty that will allow us to operationalise the scheme. But I'm glad he raised the topic of legal migration, which I agree is absolutely far too high, Madam Deputy Speaker. That's why this week we've outlined a plan bigger than any other government before to reduce the levels of legal migration by £300. It's an incredibly comprehensive plan. So if he cares so much about it, the simple question for him is, does he support the plan?
Madam Deputy Speaker, he clearly hasn't read it. Annex A says on top of the 140 million he's already showered on Rwanda, when we send people there under this treaty, we have to pay for their accommodation and their upkeep for 5 years. And that's not all. This morning, a government minister admitted that anyone we send to Rwanda who commits a crime can be returned to us. I'm beginning to see why the Home Secretary said Rwanda scheme. It's something to do with bats, I think, wasn't it? What does he first think attracted Mr. Kagame to hundreds of millions of pounds for nothing in return?
I mean,
that is staggering.
Yeah, whoever's been prepping Keir Starmer for Prime Minister's questions must be watching the podcast The Lotus Eaters, because these are all criticisms that we brought up.
But also, I just can't believe how the Conservatives can get so thoroughly owned.
They look defeated.
They look crushed. And they're getting reamed by Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
Of all people. And so it's just like...
Who looked abysmally uncharismatic last year, and now has got some rhetorical flourish. Again, I can't stand him. I think he's an absolute liar. But he is demolishing them on their own policies.
Yeah, because he can just easily outflank them from the far right.
All of those are far right talking points. Yeah. You're wasting money and not actually deporting anyone. Why are they here?
So they're going to get sent back and we're going to give them Rwanda money for nothing.
Why are we paying to house criminals? Great question, Keir. Brilliant. If anyone was confused about his reference to bats, to the very befuddled James Cleverly. James Cleverly, as soon as the Rwanda plan was defeated in the courts right before he was Home Secretary, called the plan bat excrement.
Oh, well, he's right.
Yeah. He then went back and denied it. So this was according to Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, who leaked this to the press. And so he did the press tour. And the entire press rounds in the morning from BBC Breakfast and Good Morning Britain and Sky News was them just asking him, well, did you say this? And he was saying, no, I would never use these words. And it's like, well, I'd rather you just owned it and said, yeah, it was.
You should have done.
Yeah, because it was bloody stupid plan that was never quite meant to work. Now, quick interjection. The reason it's not meant to work, this is an old clip that was dredged up by Fraser Nelson, of Fraser Nelson by Cunley Druckler. Great account. The reason it's not meant to work is because actually the Conservatives, as we know, are wedded to mass migration because they want to increase state spending as part of GDP to make it look like the GDP can go up and because birth rates are down. But everyone keeps voting for lowered migration. So the Conservative rhetorical trick, much like Keir Starmer's rhetorical trick to win the next election, is just to say that you're listening to people's concerns while never actually doing anything.
Yeah.
And this is a very mask-off moment. So I thought I'd just play this for anyone who is in doubt as to whether or not this is what the Conservative Party are doing.
And just before we go on, the Spectator is very, very, very closely tied to the Conservative Party. Like various members of the Conservative Party spend time as journalists or senior editors and whatever, and then go straight to the party and then go into some office.
Well, I went to an event a couple of weeks ago that Fraser Nelson chaired that Miriam Cates put on about birth rates, and he shouted at Philip Pilkington, who's come in for an interview we're releasing soon, who did an ARC report by saying, By 2083, with current levels of migration, Britain will be 54% first-generation immigrants. And Fraser Nelson said, I feel very uncomfortable when you say that. I think London's working out pretty well. We have a Buddhist Home Secretary, a Muslim Mayor of London, a Muslim First Minister of Scotland, a Hindu Prime Minister. It's all going very well, isn't it? And completely shutting down the conversation.
Going great.
Yeah. Let's listen to Fraser.
Watched her experience so far of her short premiership is if you persuade people that you're listening to what they have to say, that you don't reject their concerns as being bigoted or xenophobic, that if you talk in a language that is more in common with neglected voters than it is with the metropolitan fashionable elites, then that goes a long way. You don't have to come up with policies, banning immigrants or anything like that. All you need to do is to basically say to people, I hear your concerns. I mean, let's look at David Cameron. He actually, I think, did quite a good job here as well. Nobody expected him to win a majority in 2015, but he did. And he had a policy of cutting immigration by 2/3. Now, he completely failed in that target, but the fact that he had that target counted for a lot because it meant people thought at least he wanted to control immigration. And there are a lot of parties in Europe right now, and governments in Europe, who wouldn't even say that they want to control it. They think that is dark territory that they don't want to go down. Now, it's funny.
But are you saying that this is only psychology, that as long as you say the right things, people will appreciate that, and that actual results do not really matter?
I'm not saying it's only psychology, but I think a large part of it is empathy rather than psychology, is trying to say to voters, I'm on the same wavelength as you, I understand your concerns, they are legitimate concerns. I mean, the concerns people have about immigration are all usually very, very rational. Where are these people going to live because housing is quite constrained? Where are they going to go to school? What impact will they have on the labour market? Will they mean my job is going to be less well paid? What about my children? Will they struggle to find a job? You need somebody to engage in that conversation. And when you do engage in that conversation, it goes a very, very long way towards establishing trust with the electorate and taking away the idea that nobody will listen to them apart from Le Pen and people like that. And this is always...
So gaslight the public into containment.
Yeah, the secret ingredient is lies.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what the Conservative Party have been doing on their immigration policy for the last 13 years. I think Keir Starmer realises that and has just flipped it to say, let's pander to the idea that the Rwanda plan isn't going to work and that Labour's actually going to deal with this problem and then not deal with it.
Keir Starmer's like, we could lie too.
Yeah. It's almost like Tony Blair has advised him to do so. And these are the people he's going to have to lie to. I'll just finish on this because this was an article that was forwarded by our editor Rory into the chat yesterday because it deals with Swindon. So these are the prospective Labour voters. Now, Swindon has been a Conservative stronghold for many years, but I think that might be changing, particularly because the demographic composition of Swindon has changed significantly as well. So I'll just read a little bit of this from BBC News. Swindon on a cold, crisp morning certainly feels a long way from Rwanda, but the town is traditionally a good barometer of public opinion. It usually votes the way the UK votes. Labour up to 2010, Conservative since. Support for leaving the EU in Swindon South was 51.7. Nationally, it was 51.9. It's a growing town too. The population rose by 11.6 between 2011 and 2021. A bigger portion of here now come from abroad. 23% of Swindon residents said they were born outside England. 10 years earlier, it was 16%, which explains the rate at which you've seen your local high street change, Carl. So, this is the editorialising from the BBC.
Well, my local high street is just the main street in town.
Yeah, where we go to get our lunch every day. Some of Swindon's hotels are currently housing asylum seekers. It tends to be older, cheaper hotels that get block booked.
That's a lie.
That's not the case, because as you did your investigation as well.
Like, we know the hotels. You walk past them. I live here, right next to them.
There's a brand new Holiday Inn that's chock-a-block full of people that ride brand new bikes to work all the time. That's interesting.
I stayed there once. It was £100.
Glad my tax is going on that. One hotel worker tells me many of the staff have been laid off because he says the cleaning and catering arrangements are less intensive. He also says the deals done through a company contracted by the Home Office include the cost of refurbishing the hotel before it reopens to the general public, which it never bloody will. He's angered by the sense of companies profiting from the taxpayer and the plight of traumatized asylum seekers. Oh, you're so... Well, yeah, actually...
We walk past them every day. They do not look bloody traumatized.
I'd be traumatized if I had to live in Swindon as well. But to be fair, they do just sit in Costa Coffee all day and smoking cigarettes on...
Yeah, until one of them stabs some kids to death.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Like, I moved to Reading to get away from London. I was like, okay, Reading, the demographics are a bit strange as well. But, it's only 1 in 3 people are foreign. So that's not too bad. So then, I'm living there for a couple of years. I started to notice there's a lot of the same problems that London has. And then just all of a sudden, some kid who was in for terrorism offences goes to the park and stabs a bunch of gay guys to death because, Allah said so.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, yeah, get out of here. And now Swindon's going to be the same place. And it's like, how much further down the rail line can I really go? I mean, do we have to end up in Truro? And that's it.
No. We went to Exeter, and the same thing, you can see the seeds of it begin in Exeter.
Global homogenization will chase you to the ends of the earth.
It's going to be the entire country.
Literally Land's End.
Yes.
Just all the way down the southwest, and then
it's going to eat up the entire country.
English go live in the sea. Great.
Just build yourself a sandcastle. So they asked a few people that live in Swindon. So this is 61-year-old Vince. He owns a key.
Didn't ask me, did they?
Nope.
Giving them some opinions. Anyway, go on.
They wouldn't have been able to print them, let's be honest.
They probably, well.
So he's actually...
We spoke to one YouTuber from Swindon, and it's just censored text. Like just black lines.
Yeah. And furthermore... and then...
So to be fair, Vince seems like a very patriotic Englishman. He met the Queen after engraving a large artillery shell with the names of 400 British soldiers killed in Afghanistan. So yeah, he seems like a very sensible bloke. So they asked him, what does he think of Rwanda? And he said, I think it's come to the point where we have to sort this out. You can't keep talking about something without acting on it. You have to go one way or the other, and we've gone too far with it to go back. It would show weakness now to go back. Rwanda's not a bad place. We're not sending them to a prison. They're being looked after. On our expense, I might add. It's not a bad thing, it's just distant. He recalls an immigrant once who came in to request he remove the Union flags hanging outside his shop. He said, he found my flags offensive, but I said, sorry, you'll have to get used to it.
Based.
Local Swindonians are now being asked to remove their national flag because the newcomers are offended.
Just the gall of it. The gall of it. I can't get... Sorry.
In your own back garden. I don't blame you for being mad.
No, that can't go on YouTube. So I'm
Yep.
going to shut up.
Yep,
Yeah,
no worries.
I can't carry
So
on.
they turned to one of his customers who was also in the shop, and she decided she didn't want to be named, which is surprising because she had all the current thing opinions. She's just resigned from nursing at the local hospital, saying she's concerned about immigration, but she doesn't have to blame that for the pressure on the NHS. It's not immigration, it's governments not managing budgets.
But we've only got one hospital, so we know what hospital that was.
Government's not managing budget. Why does the budget keep going up every year for a sub-replacement birth rate? Can't possibly fathom that.
It's all that privatization.
You can tell she's literally just read it in a newspaper or the TV.
Or the BBC, probably.
And that's it.
Yeah. And she asked, how much does Rwanda cost? That's our government saying to taxpayers, you're going to end up paying for all that, but they don't give us the choice. They just don't ask us. It's not right. Well, we're paying for all the migrants as is as well.
We're paying for this either way.
Lady, who do you think those taxes you pay go to? The guy in front of you taking out the ATM.
Well, did you know it's only immigrants paying taxes? So they asked other Swindonians, Swindonian immigrants, it turns
They don't
out.
have to be blue hair.
Oh, not this woman. This woman's even worse. I don't mind the blue hair. Anyway, so Cathal and Midge McCormack moved here 25 years ago. He's originally from Ireland. Your typical immigrant, of course. They're clueless, utterly clueless, he says, when asked about the government's immigration policy. They don't have a plan. All they do is go around shouting, stop the boats. They've paid around 140 million so far for nothing. Pretty based. Until he says, the town needs immigrants. You walk around Swindon and despite all the closed shops, I wonder if there's some kind of connection here. There's loads of vacancy notices. We need people. It's absolutely crazy. Unemployment in Swindon.
So many people, man.
Just
Where do these people live? That's what I don't get.
Yes.
I joined the Swindon Conservatives a while back, and I ran into this problem before getting kicked out. That I'd bring up the statistics of where I live or show them pictures, and then they text me back just being like, there's no problems here. And then I'd find out where their postcode is, and for some reason, it's not in Swindon. It's right on the outside.
Yeah. But the thing is, Swindon's grown like, what was it, 16% or something in the last 10 years? It's like, what do you mean we need more people? We can see there are more people. Like, the traffic is unbelievable.
What do you mean grown?
Yeah, well,
there's no more English people.
Yeah, well, but there's no more room. Like, they're building, like, in the building next to our building, they're converting an office space into a block of flats because there's just more and more people, and we need more and more places for them to live.
You know, half the mall's gone for flats now.
Yeah, it's mental. It's absolutely mental. It's like, but we need more people. Why?
The human battery farm of the Southwest will continue.
But honestly, the traffic is unbelievable. Anyway, sorry.
It's painful enough when you're talking about people who are in London or something, and you're just like, okay, city person, mental. But like, we live here, so it's hard to understand how someone else who lives here could come away from it being like, man, you know what the problem is? Not enough guys just walking around at 4 p.m. for no reason.
Someone didn't, and the BBC decided to editorialise with Havelock Street's mobile. It's not long to find suspicion on Havelock Street, even fear of outsiders and open racism. At Havelock Street's mobile phone shop, Lazin Guzel is clear about his opinion. I don't think it's right. The court said no. How can you go against the court if you're thinking about human rights? It's wrong, completely wrong. How are we going to believe in the justice system? How are we going to believe in our country our country if we go against justice. Lezgin is an immigrant from Turkey who moved here after getting married. It's not just the UK where he sees hostility. The racism in Turkey and the way they look at foreigners is worse than here. And in Turkey, the majority of people are Muslim, and there's Muslim people coming to Turkey, and they still complain to this problem.
Got to get rid of those Muslims, say the Turks.
Yep. It's not about saying the British people are racist or selfish. But one woman decided to express her...
Sorry, what was that? What was that sentence? You'll find racism in Swindon. I know this because I found a Turk who says Turkey's racist.
Yeah.
that's not a sentence.
That is a good point. There's an example of racism. We had to import it from a foreign country.
They found a new Labour voter who they did say was racist, right? So a woman who was born in the UK but describes her origin as Irish, traveller, Norwegian, complains that her doctor's surgery is busy with immigrants. Why is it like this? Why do I have to put up with it? I can't get a doctor's appointment. I'm an English citizen.
An immigrant. I'm being put out by all of these immigrants.
Well, she says, why do I have to see an Indian doctor? I should be able to choose to have a female white doctor. Considering she's a woman for certain women's issues, I would agree. She says she isn't racist, but makes some unfounded claims about immigrants being responsible for a disproportionate level of crime. Yep.
Yep. You ever notice how those with Irish ancestry are usually the ones who are on the far right spectrum in the UK?
Did it say that she was a traveller?
Yes.
Yeah, so an actual gypsy.
Yeah, they are racist as hell.
Yeah, yes. But they're...
Which is really funny for them.
Yeah, I know. Normally it's, racism against the gypsies, and the gypsies are like, not racist, just don't like.
I mean, it is kind of funny the gypsies are turning around and saying that immigrants are responsible for a disproportionate level of crime, and she's worried about her daughter being pestered by foreign men. I mean,
what's untrue?
Not untrue.
Not untrue, but like, what's happening?
Yep. She interrupts herself as a woman passes wearing a headscarf and veil. That lady over there, that shouldn't be allowed. Absolutely not. She's only showing her eyes. I can't wear a balaclava around town, so why can she wear that? There's no difference, is there? The BBC reporter says, when I suggest that she's from an immigrant background, she turns on me, tells me angrily to step away and threatens to assault me. Not confirming any gypsy stereotypes.
Average traveller response.
Yes.
Which at this point I'm kind of not only familiar with, but kind of.
Well, look at that interaction. Yeah. Someone points out, look, this is mad. I'm not allowed to do that, but they are. And the BBC journal goes, well, she's an immigrant. Well, she gets special rights then.
The local leftists has come in to allay all of our concerns.
Yeah.
Even the Labour parties. Quote, it's cruel and makes us unkind, says Caitlin Snyder, waiting for her boyfriend at the Kurdish barbers. Reputable establishment. The fact they've made the dangerous journey all the way here says something to me that they're willing to risk everything to give their children a better life. Oh, yeah. All the children they bring with them. It's not helping anybody by sending them back.
Their children. Yeah. I mean, technically it is possession, right? Jesus. This country is just so bad.
It's not helping them. It's not helping us here. Caitlin, a 25-year-old coffee shop worker, sums up the conflicted views of immigration that immigration provokes. My family are all Navy, RAF, military. They feel more strongly than I do, and I'm kind of the black sheep. They want closed borders, focus on our own. And so I rounded off on that because even though you're looking at a woman that looks like the typical Labour voter, it turns out her closed borders, RAF-loving family may be the new Labour Party. So welcome to the far right, I guess.
Well, that used to be the position of the Labour Party.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Brokenomics series, this episode on Japan. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.